welcome back to Thrivecast. I'm Jesslyn Schenken. I'm here with my awesome husband,
Benjamin Schenken.
And we are here with episode 2. Thanks so much for coming back. And today we're going to talk about something to do with values and thriving your values and
something values thrive values something.
Thrive values something.
Yeah, so that's the official title.
Thrive values something.
And we'll have to get our people to transcribe that later. Good luck.
Yes, have fun, guys.
Yep. Anyways,
we say to the empty room that we're in. We have people. We totally have people.
We do.
See, he's my people and his people. It
we're
works.
People.
We know people.
We the people of the United States of America. I don't know. I never memorized
it. It's been a while since high school, hasn't it?
Exactly. We should recite that sometime, just for fun.
Just for fun on the podcast.
I don't know.
Just the entire Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Beginning to end.
Because that has to do with thriving. Anyways, what you got over there?
So, what you cannot see in my hand, because this is an audio podcast, is a really awesome little gray crumpled up piece of paper that was my foray into the world of origami.
It looks beautiful, folks.
It does not, but he's really sweet. So this is I believe they called it a humming whistle. So
try it. Let's see if it hums.
Beautiful noise.
Little known fact, but I'm trying to make it more widely known fact about Jesslyn. She actually can't make the sound with her tongue. So like with her, so oh yes, all those things are, I'm sure they want to hear that in their ears. But anyways,
you're welcome, guys.
Yeah, that's good.
We are the best. So I really rock at origami, as you could tell by the beautiful humming that came out of my little crumpled gray piece of paper. Ben tells me it has something to do with my spatial awareness. I don't know what he's talking about. My spatial awareness is awesome. I only get lost every
we have a Fiat 500, guys,
and
Jesslyn cannot pack that thing for the life of her. And so
she just shove things in.
So she just like puts everything outside the car. It's like, all right, your turn. All right, I'll pack it. And I can get your couch in there, your cow in there, 4 chickens,
sometimes 5,
your piano and everything, it doesn't
your crystal chandelier, it'll arrive safely, it'll be beautiful, and then 7 people
and with the trunk to close and everything, even if it's longer than the car itself, it will fit in there because
we fit things in. Ben fit things into the Fiat 500 that we could not fit into his Jeep. The car is a TARDIS, guys. It's amazing.
Anyways,
doesn't know what that means.
Yeah, I don't, but I agree with her. It's just like, yes, ma'am.
It's a TARDIS. If you know what that means, I like you. Yeah, you're a good person.
Something like that. Anyways, so we're here and we're just talking about values this week.
Values.
And today our value was to clean out the rabbit cage, and that was really fun. So we took all the poop and then put it into a bucket, and then they use that for the garden. People here that we rent from, and they love the rabbit poop. They're like, "This is gold." I'm like, "I'm so glad you think so."
The rabbit poop.
I'm not so excited about that.
Yes, you have more rabbit poop. That's
and
awesome.
We've been getting. We got 4 eggs yesterday. Yay. That was amazing. Woohoo! They're all like 4 different colors. They're so cool. So we love our chickens. So we've been doing that and just hanging out today. But we we issued a challenge last week where we wanted people to come up with 5, particularly that number. 5 values that they have that they live their life off. So we, took our own challenge and we tried to fulfill that. But, I'll let Jesslyn explain, how that came about. So what we did.
So, we came up with 5 values. And then just before the show, I was like, oh my goodness, Ben, we forgot a really, really important one that we didn't put on here. And so he worked really, really hard to try and categorize it under something else. And I wouldn't let him do it, and I felt like it had to be its own separate thing. And so we have 6 values.
But I'll just say this, though. One of our values is integrity. So, I mean,
so he told me that I could put the 6th value in there, but I had to, come clean and, confess. So here's my heartfelt apology for not listening to our own instructions.
Okay. Anyways. No, it's good. It's all good. Anyway, so we're going to list them off. I'll read them off, and then we'll kind of go through them one by one. And then we had some cool amazing people. We're really excited. This was our second week doing this. We had some people respond, and so we have their values, and they said we could share them, or they were posted on social media or whatever. And so we're going to be sharing those too with you, but we'll get to that later, and we'll have something for you later. So, anyways, so the first one is this is us together. So we obviously have our own values. We're two different people, but we decided, as a married couple, who are we, and who do we want to be, and how do we want to live our life? And so one of them is relational, and so we'll explain what that is. The second one is integrity. The third one is fun. The fourth one is direct communication and direct action versus indirect. And the fifth is vision. And then the bonus one that Jesselyn couldn't leave off there was holistic health, which I think is great. I just wish we could have fit it in 5, but that's okay. We can.
6 is a nice even number. Divides in half easily.
I can't even. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Anyways, I guess you can't even, Jessa.
I can even.
You can.
You can't even.
You can even. I can't even.
Exactly.
Anyway, so back to number 1. So you want to talk about relational, and I'll get to integrity. So go ahead and explain what that means, and then if you can give an example or whatever, that would be really cool.
Yeah, we talked about this one a little bit last week. But Ben and I are just a little bit off the beaten path. Mm-hmm. We don't like to follow the system for the sake of following the system. And so much of America's system is impersonal and doesn't have too much to do with relationship. And we looked at our life and said that we wanted to live differently. So we wanted to live our life based on relationships and personal connections. So this comes into play a lot of different ways. One of them that is probably kind of more obvious is we really value deep community. We value having real connections. We value doing community with people. But the aspect of it we talked a little bit about last week, and that's not quite as obvious, is we want to make choices about our practical life based on relationship. So if we have stuff to store and we could pay a human being, this one person or a small group of people, versus paying a massive company, we would rather do that. And like our healthcare, even, we do something called a health share, where it's a legitimate company that does this. It's, it fulfills all the requirements and everything, but it's very cool. You pay directly to people who have health needs, who they file a claim with the company, and you pay them directly. And then if you have something that goes wrong, they pay you. And so your money's going directly to people. And that's big for us. We want to do things in ways that it directly helps out people.
Yeah, and we do things. One of the things we're challenged with right now, we stayed with a few weeks ago down in Texas. We were filming, and we stayed with an older couple. I mean, not very old, but older than us. And one of the things that they do is they tip 100% of the bill every time that there's like a restaurant where there's a server. And we were just amazed by this. We were shocked. We're like, and they're like, we just have done this for years. They're believers in Jesus, and they just believe that abundance is a big thing about that is giving. And so they're just incredibly generous. Scott and Yvette, you guys are amazing, but we really were challenged by that, because we're like, I think this is something we need to do. And so we've actually kind of adopted that as our practice. We're still building up to that being like every single time without fail, but I would say 9 times out of 10 we do that now. And so we probably eat out a little bit less so we can afford to do that. But it's relational. We want to bless that person. We want to make sure the person in front of us is taken care of. And there's a lot more examples there, but we're going to move on to the next one. So next one is integrity. And integrity for us is basically doing what you say you're going to do. And when Jess and I were dating, I drilled this into her because it's a very strong value of mine. It's not that it's not of hers, but just kind of how we defined that was a little bit different at the time.
I was a little overly flexible in between what I said and my implementation of that.
Yeah, it wasn't that she was flaky, but it was.
But just a little bit flaky.
Wasn't she was flaky, just a little bit flaky. Okay, well, she said it, not me. All right, it's on recording now, so I don't want this coming back at me. But so we'd make plans, and something would come up or whatever, and it wasn't like I could be inflexible point, like, oh yeah, my grandma died, I need to go to a funeral. Like, that's fine, that didn't happen. But I'm saying there's situations like that. But there's cases where you're like, oh, I'm more tired than I wanted to be, or was thinking I'd be at this time, and now I'm gonna cancel all the plans. And I was like, nah, that's not okay. And so we had some conversation about that, and I said, you know what, I'd rather you like not make a plan with me, or not promise something. But like, if you say you're gonna do something, I need to know that you're gonna do it, and I need to know that you're gonna show up, unless it's out of your control that happened. But canceling really isn't an option. And we kind of adopted this policy of like, Schenkens don't cancel.
Yeah.
It's like, if we say we're gonna do something, we show up, we do it. And
for me, at first, it was fairly shocking. Like, he took away my cancel card. But as the time went on, it wasn't that like, oh, he's really inflexible and can't give up his plan or anything like that. It's not, he's actually very flexible, and, we would...
It's not rigidity. It's integrity. There's a difference.
And so... But it made me think, rather than just saying yes to everything and then canceling them when they didn't fit my whims, or when I was too tired, or when I'd overbooked or whatever, it was like, oh, if I say yes to this, I need to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And so it caused me to stop and be like, okay, well, do I actually want to say yes to this? And that's so much better, because it's not negatively affecting the people around you, where, I still might say no to all the same things, except I do it in advance rather than
you do it up front.
Do it, yeah.
You don't unintentionally. You're not deceptive or trying to trick somebody and trying to promise something you can't do. It's deliver on. It's like, and that's really huge. And then when you do that, it just really creates trust.
Yep.
It creates honor. It creates all these amazing things, and we just really value that. So. Next one is fun. Justin, if you want to start talking about that, and then I might, jump in, and we'll see where it goes from there. But
well, as you can tell from our intros, we like to be silly. We like to make jokes.
No, we don't. We don't like to be silly at all. We don't appreciate sarcasm or any of those kind of...
I hate sarcasm.
No, it is the worst.
It's the worst. Sarcasm is directly from the devil. Descended from hell. It descended from hell. I've never heard that before. Hell is floating over your head.
Oh man, wow. You gotta know a whole nother theology. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna
Where is hell?
Where is hell?
That's a good question.
I think we should pass on that
discussion
for now. So let's talk about fun. How do we have fun?
Oh, so we're not talking about hell, we're talking about fun?
Well, yeah.
Those are a little bit different.
Some would say they're the same thing. But that's another topic.
That's a topic for another day.
How about how we have fun?
Okay, so fun. We love jokes. We spent probably an hour today just figuring out these silly riddles.
Oh, it's the best.
Like us and people who we live on their property. They're in a different house. I think we talked about it last week. I don't know. And we love to play games, and we love to go do fun things. We love to laugh. We love to tell fun stories. We try really hard to find fun in the difficult everyday life things, the mundane stuff. We're definitely still working on that. I wouldn't say we're there 100%, but it's definitely a strong value of ours. And there's plenty of times where we've kind of stopped and been like, oh.
So here's an example. So we're at bed. We live in a tiny house, so we have a loft up there. And so we'll change our pajamas. We've got our dirty clothes from the day before, and we'll put it up there. So oftentimes she'll go downstairs or I'll go downstairs, and we will just pelt each other and yell, "Dirty clothes, Mom!" and pelt it down in the back of his head. And it just starts the day so fun, because it's just like, because you could be like, pick up your socks, and it's like, no, why don't we just make it fun that we have to clean our house, and
The
all
tiny
types of
house
stuff
is
like
so
that.
much fun because it feels
It's
like
like
a
a
tree
fort,
house. Yeah, it's like a
guys.
fort,
It's so
force,
cool.
fort,
Fort
fort,
and treehouse
and a tree
and
house
cabin.
and a cabin
And
in the
it's like
woods.
we have our little mini fridges and off to the side, and that's really cool because it's like
It's
we
like
got
every kid's
snacks.
dream.
It's
It's
amazing. We
awesome.
love it. So we live in a little treehouse fort, and we love being up because we have 13 windows in our tiny house, so we can see like the whole yard. It's on the acre property. We're in the back of the acre, and oh, it's just
And our
amazing.
bed's
So
on the second floor, like he
and then
said.
we'll just go out and I'll like play with my chickens at night, and I'll just hold them up on my finger, and we raise them since they're babies, and they're kind of my little babies. Not that Jocelyn doesn't like them too, she does, but I'll go up and I'll just hold them on my finger and pet them, and it's just like that's what we do. And we do really long days, hard work, but we really try to make sure that fun is just kind of within there. So
And we stop and we reevaluate. There's been times where it's been like, oh, hey, we're not having fun. We're not living according to this. Like, okay, let's reroute a little bit. And that's the thing about these values. This isn't like, what are the ways that you are perfectly exhibiting these
right.
things in your life? It's like, no, this is what I've determined to live my life by. These are the values that I'm going to basically set my compass to. And then there's times where you get a gust of wind and it gets you off course, and then you go, oh, okay, no, this isn't in accordance to my values. I'm gonna make a little adjustment. So
No,
that's
good.
definitely one that we do, that we have to do that with a lot, just because we run our own business. We've got 80,000 different projects going.
Yeah.
We travel all
Teach
the
private
time,
music
which is
lessons,
fun,
or
but
traveling. We
sometimes you just get tired, sometimes you get grumpy,
exhausted.
sometimes you get in the mundane.
And sometimes you just have to get up in the midnight hour and make pancakes. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's good. Well, let's move on. Direct communication action. So,
This is a good one,
This is a really good
guys.
one. And people in our culture don't like this.
Nope,
and
this
we
is
don't
not
really care.
an American value.
It's not, but I'm Jewish, so I don't play. It's funny. I like, this is stereotype, Jews are cheap or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know if it's true or not, but I go with it, And someone's like, yeah, they just kind of charge me more. And I said, oh no, I'm Jewish. I don't pay more than 13% less than what it's worth. I mean, I just don't play with that, and it's
And
like,
then
I
we
love to
tip 100%.
negotiate, but yeah, we'll tip 100% on it. So it's a very strange thing. We want to be generous. But we like the deal. We like the negotiation. I do more than Jessalyn. But, it drives me insane when you go to these shops and then they don't have all their upcharges marked. I'm like, I want avocado, I want bacon. It's like, that'll be $47. Like, my sandwich was only $5. What do you mean?
Do not upcharge this man.
Oh my gosh. You will hear it from me. But yet, I will tip you 100% on what you... If you're my server, I will tip you 100%. I have no problem with that. But you better not charge me a dime more than it's said on the menu you were going to charge me. Oh, no.
It's the integrity thing.
It's integrity and it's direct communication. Don't try to slip something in there. And we tell that to people, and we're like, we might not be the easiest to get along with. I think we're fun, and but we're intense people,
Yeah.
And that's okay. We've embraced that, right? But I will say, so like we moved in this property, and we get along with our landlords. They're amazing, and we, interchange with them quite a bit, and they'll invite us over, we'll invite them over, whatever. And so when it comes to business, we're very prompt. We're very, like, if we're at a video shoot or we're doing a website, we'll show up on time for the meeting, or we'll let them know, hey, we're running behind or whatever. But we won't just kind of stroll in late and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to social functions, we have a different measuring thing. And so we've told them, like, listen, if it's a social function, we're probably gonna be late. If you really care about that, you need to tell us, please show up at this time. I need to leave, or this is when the movie starts, or whatever it is. No problem. We often respect that, or we'll be like, hey, you know what? We can't come because we're whatever. But it's we have a different clock than everybody, and so we try to be very clear about who we are, what we'll do, what we won't do, what we're and that's the boundaries aspect of this that I think is really important. And we didn't have boundaries so much in the values, but it plays into all these. And so if you're not communicating who you are, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and you're not communicating that through direct means and not expecting people to read your minds, I really struggle with that because no one can do that. I don't know what Jessalyn's thinking. I constantly challenge her, please tell me what you're thinking, tell me what you need. She hated that question for so long. I'm like, what do you need? And it would just kind of freeze her for a little bit. But then she got to the point where she, like, has really grown and adapted and like loves this direct communication because she gets her needs met more often than not because she's able to communicate them.
And I think naturally, I'm a pretty direct person, but culturally, it's been kind of worked out of me because the American culture is actually very indirect. So I don't think most people realize that because Americans have the stereotype of being like loud and in your face and da da da, but we're kind of indirect about it. So the way this plays out is that everybody has a social filter that's just kind of culturally accepted. It's a lens that we run stuff through where we kind of know if someone says, hey, can you do this by the 15th? We have a little radar that goes off in our head and go, oh, it would be more polite and they would like it better if we do this on the 10th. So you've got this hidden expectation that's not communicated where they really, really want to say the 10th, but they don't feel like they have that power. And so they just have to hope that the other person has their little social radar on that says, oh, they look a little bit uncomfortable. They'd probably rather that I do this on the 10th instead of the 15th, which is what they said. And the funny thing is, Ben and I are actually pretty good at reading that.
And
but
we push it.
We've refused to bow to it.
Yeah.
So we're very big on we're going to do what we say, and we expect you to do the same because we believe in people and we believe that they can rise up to that standard, even though it's kind of a high one in today's culture. So if you say the 15th, we're going to take it that that's the deadline. You know, if you say that you're not angry, we're going to believe you.
Take it at face value.
But this creates a beautiful place of trust because when you create that kind of culture around you, everyone knows that there's nothing hidden. So when someone is angry, they can come bring it up and there can be resolution. And when someone says, hey, I need this done by this time, you know that really is the time that it needs to be done. And then you can come, you can actually meet that need. And so much of our communication is done through passive aggressive means and through manipulation. And that creates so much anxiety just as a culture because you have to go around trying to read everybody's thoughts. Well, maybe they're thinking this. Well, maybe when they said this, they actually meant that. Well, what did that little motion mean? Well, what did they think when... And it's exhausting. And I challenge you to just stop.
Yeah. Just
drop it. Let it go. And sometimes it's painful, but it's a good painful. It's ripping off the Band-Aid. You know, it's letting things heal.
And there's freedom in it.
And there's so much freedom. I used to run around just constantly trying to make everybody happy with the things that I thought they were thinking. And you can't know what's going on in somebody else's head.
That is a rabbit hole you don't want to go down.
It never ends. And it's exhausting. But when you can drop that and start taking people at face value, and there's communication with that. We'll tell people, hey, we're going to believe what you say. So just tell us straight. And if we feel like people aren't, sometimes we'll push them on it. Like, hey,
you said this. Is that what you meant? Or my interpretation of what you said was this. Help me understand. Was that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. Because we actually want to understand people.
Get really uncomfortable at first, and then they really appreciate it after they kind of go through that process with us a lot of times. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, and we're not perfect at it, and we have our indirect communication moments, and sometimes there's a softness to the indirect, and I understand that kind of saving face, but by and large, we want to...
We're not rude about it.
No.
But, yeah,
it's a strong value of ours.
Yep. Yeah. It creates safety. And so we don't do it because it's like, oh, well, we want to be jerks, but we do it because it's like, hey, we want to be able to communicate directly with you and you to communicate directly to us because it creates safety.
Yeah, it's good. We'll move on to vision. So Vision is purpose. Vision is it's not where we're at right now, but it's where we're going, and I can see it, and I'm going after it. And we really, there are very few things that we don't do that aren't driven by an actual, like a vision or a purpose behind it. And we're very intentional, it could be another word for it. And so, I mean, gosh, we felt like we were supposed to move across the country. We were living in Northern California in a town called Redding, and we ended up coming back for a visit, and we had some opportunities open up and some things in our heart. We felt like we were supposed to move across the country, and so we did. We didn't have a job lined up. We work self-employed, and so we had clients and stuff like that, but we didn't know what it was gonna be. We didn't know where we were gonna live. We ended up staying with some people for a couple of months. They graciously hosted us, and then we ended up getting in the tiny house. But it was pretty wild because we did that all based on vision. And there's a lot of different things that I will do for love I'd never do for money. And so it's really cool to live like that, because then you make choices differently. You don't let circumstances so much determine. I mean, there's sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. You gotta pay your taxes. You gotta do all that kind of stuff. But the vision of that is that you're living honorably, I guess. But my point in saying that is, it's just a different way to live. We get up every morning and we're enthralled. And that's way better than getting up and droning on because this is what everyone else does, and this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what you do. You get up and you go to your 9 to 5. And I'm not knocking if you have a 9 to 5, because some people really love that, and that's awesome. That's not a good fit for us, but but don't go to your 9 to 5 if that's not where you're supposed to be. It's a waste of your life. Don't waste your life.
And this even comes into play with the way we interact with clients and the way we take or don't take jobs. So we're not necessarily going to take on a project just because someone's paying us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't feel like the vision behind our company is helping small businesses thrive. If we feel like something that a client's asking us to do isn't in alignment with that, like isn't going to help their business move forward, help them thrive, isn't going to be in alignment to that, we're not going to do it just because they're paying us, We are out to help people. And if what we're doing isn't helping people, we don't want to do it.
Yeah. And there's exceptions to that where it's like, okay, well, a client will ask us to do something. We're like, yeah, I don't know that's the best, but, we also respect their leadership and all that kind of thing. So
oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's not like we put our foot down, but if there's something that we're like, this is actually just a waste of time and money, we're not going to we don't want to just take the money just to have, so we can say we have an income or whatever. We really want to make sure that we're packing a punch with what we do, and so you just want to serve that aim. And that works in a lot of things that we do. I'll let Jesselyn talk about the last one, and maybe you can tie in vision into like our holistic health and where we're going with that, because a lot of the choices we've made are tied to that too.
Yeah. So the 6th core value that I added here that I insisted on putting in was holistic health. This is really important to both of us. I'm sure you could tell that it was huge for me because I went on about it for quite a while in last week's podcast. But it's very important to us to live healthy in all realms of our life. That's where the thrive comes from. It's about thriving. And this is kind of an overarching one, so maybe we can just call this the umbrella that goes over the other 5.
Look at her trying to backpedal. That was cute. Love this woman right here. Anyways, go ahead, honey. You can have 6.
Yay, 6. So
you can even. That's awesome.
I can even, guys.
2, 4, 6,
2,
8,
4,
10,
6, 8,
12,
10,
14.
This is kind of an
16.
inside joke. We'll talk about it later.
Time,
someday. Maybe. You'll see.
Or maybe we won't.
So, we really, he talked about health and vision being tied together, and they really are, because we want to do great things with our life. And you can't do great things with your life if you're tired and sluggish and have chronic fatigue syndrome, and your emotional health is spinning out of whack and your spiritual health isn't anywhere near anything, and you can't help other people if you're in that state. You can't affect change in the world if you're in that state, or maybe you can for a while.
If there's
but
an
there's
end that comes, there's a burnout that's inevitable.
Yep, there's no
If you don't take care of
sustainability
yourself.
there.
Yeah.
And we've both experienced burnout, and we've both kind of gone, let's not do that
Well,
again.
talk about your health journey in the last few months. Yeah. I think that's a really good example of some changes that we've made that I would say we moved from surviving to thriving in.
Yeah. So
mine too, but I kind of came along with your push for it.
Last year, I was probably like end of 2016, early 2017. I was pretty sick. I never got diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I had fibromyalgia. I'm 23. I was 22 at the time. So, I was a little young to be experiencing all of this, but I would lie in bed at night and just be in so much pain. My whole body would hurt. My hands hurt pretty much 24/7. They would get worse sometimes, and I would just ask Ben, I'm like, can you please just rub my hands? They hurt so bad. So he would like massage my hands, or like sometimes I would even just like sort of gently bite my fingers to just try and like diffuse the pain a little bit. I was so tired. There were days I just couldn't get out of bed. I would have to like call in sick to work or school or whatever, and just I was a wreck. I was shot. And so it finally hit me. I'm like, okay, I can't do this. I've got to make a change. I can't have my entire life stolen from me at the age of 22. Like, that's not okay. And I don't think it's okay at 65. I don't think it's okay at any age. Like, we're meant to live healthy and to feel healthy. So I cut out everything from my diet. I cut out nuts and gluten and grains and potatoes,
even
and some different fruits, and like legumes and like dairy, and like I basically ate meat and vegetables.
And even some meats I think you stayed away from a little bit here and there.
Yeah, I wasn't eating any pork or
like
lunch
that.
meat or anything. Like, basically I was eating beef, chicken, lamb,
and venison. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so good. And vegetables. And within a few weeks I started to feel better. It was amazing. Like, the brain fog was going away, the pain was going away. I was starting to get energy back. And so we just kept moving forward with it. And then I was able to kind of pinpoint that gluten was the issue. And I was able to add most of the other stuff back in varying degrees depending on, how bad it is for you. We still try to stay away from sugar to some extent.
And even some grains.
Some grains and stuff. So, but pulled gluten out, and then Ben joined me, and he pulled gluten out of his diet and started just overall feeling healthier. And it was amazing. So now a year later, I have full energy. We go run at the gym, we work out, we work really long days some days, and we run our own business that has so many different facets, and it's amazing because of the changes that we've made. And so we feel like that's so important for sustainability and for the vision that we have for our life.
Well, and even like, are we happy?
Yeah. No, it's huge.
Are we not depressed? Are we like in our sweet spot? And those things apply to health too, and vision. And so
It's
personally, I'm driven like, if I'm doing something of purpose, generally I'm happier. It's not a direct one-to-one correlation, but it's pretty related, or if I'm doing something worthwhile, if I'm helping someone, if I'm working on a project that's bringing something forward, I'm going to be good. But if I'm just doing meaningless tasks, even if it's necessary meaningless tasks, like, filling out paperwork or whatever, they're meaningful in the long run, but, seemingly meaningless tasks or whatever. It's really hard. So we really try to monitor that and see like, all right, how are we doing in this thing? So I would say, I don't know what you would say, but I would say we're probably 8 out of 10 on the Thrivometer, if I had to put it that way, in
Yeah.
all of this stuff. I think there's definitely room for growth, but I mean, you look back a few months and we were probably 4 or 5 or maybe even 6, depending, and factoring health in there and all those kind of things. And so, I don't know what would you say we're at?
Like a 7,
7.
but up there. I mean, I was probably at a
You were lower than I
3
was, yeah.
or
So,
something like that, because
yeah,
it was like stuff I was doing wasn't, I wasn't thriving in that. My health was a wreck. There's just a lot that
yeah,
wasn't good, and we have made so much progress, and we are constantly moving forward in this. And like he said, we check in with each other regularly, like, hey, how are you doing? How are we doing? Like, and even just before we recorded the podcast, I was like, Ben, I feel sad. And we don't look at sadness of like, oh, this is bad and you have to make it go away, but it
mm-hmm.
is like, oh, there's something here
It's
we
an
need to pay
indicator.
attention to.
Yeah, it's a sign.
And so we
So
sat
we
down and
gotta
we
try to
talked,
figure that
and
out.
there's some stuff in my life that I was kind of hanging on to that was good to let go, just some emotional baggage that we were able to pinpoint and move forward from there. And so yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
it's
good.
good. It's good. Well, why don't you read a couple of these? First one being from Mel. She posted on our social media, so it was really cool. So she listened to it. She accepted the challenge. This is what she said about her family. I'll let Jesselyn read that one, and then we've got a couple more, and then we've got a challenge at the end, and that'll wrap up our time. Yeah.
Yeah. So she said, I'm just going to read what she wrote here. Not on the list because it is above all else. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. And then her list is living in abundance in health and wealth, changing our food system by opting out, of conventional food production, embracing our crazy creative ADHD family and stop trying to keep up with neurotypical standards, impart an understanding of where food comes from to our children. Animals die for us to eat them, and that's okay, but it needs to be understood. Meat is not produced in the back of the grocery store. Teach our family respect for our soil, plants, animals, family, neighbors, and strangers. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And
I love that because it's not the same thing as us, and it doesn't need to be. And all the things we were talking about, you don't need to have our values. We're not trying to ever say that. There's some things I think you should have. Like direct communication is a strong value that I think will really could help society or would help society if people embrace that. But a lot of this stuff, it's kind of how we're hardwired. But she's hardwired obviously differently in the way her family's made up, and I think she's got kids and stuff like that. But
yeah, and I know Melanie, and she's focused on a lot of really amazing like health stuff and sustainability and just all that kind of stuff, as you can see from that. And so she's got a really amazing target focus on that, and like you said, it's different than ours, and there's some overlap there, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome. We also had another listener, and she was talking with us, and she said, yeah, this is what I came up with for mine. And her family overlaps with some. She's a mom of a few, I think 4. Yeah, mom of 4. And she said, her name's Diane. She said, I was designed for relationship, community, and connection. Enjoying the process because it all matters. Number 2, knowing how to do stuff. She wanted to be able to just, the value of like, I can fix that, or I can upload that to the computer, or I can plug in that DVD player, or whatever it is. Or I can fill out my taxes. She just wanted to know how to do stuff.
I can make soap.
Yeah, she makes soap. It's really cool.
I can just all the different life skills that most people don't even have.
Yeah. And then another one was think about the why, and actually choose the one that she wants. And I think that's really important. A lot of people make a lot of choices based on should. I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And she's like, well, let's take a step back. What is the point of this? Okay, why? All right, now I'm going to choose because of that why, instead of just kind of going with the flow. Another one she said was avoiding bondage, Commitment is good, but bondage is bad. And I think that that's really powerful if you guys can pick up on this. So if you commit to something because you choose to, and you own that choice, and you're doing the things that you need to execute that choice, that's great. But as soon as that thing owns you, whether it's debt or whether it's a commitment on your calendar, or whether it's, I mean, it can be any area really. You've got an issue and you've got to deal with that. And so you got to be careful not to let it move into bondage, or let that thing own you. You need to be a powerful person in control of your life, your actions, your choices, and that kind of thing. So I thought that was really good. And then the last one she had is that more is accomplished with God in rest than striving will ever produce. And I think that that's just kind of going with the flow of life, the rhythms of life, and God kind of orchestrates that. And so a lot of times you will be pushing up against something, and He's saying wait, or however that works. And so I just think I think that's a really powerful practice too, is to do things out of a place of rest, not out of a place of strife and exhaustion. And there's a balance to that. So you had one more I think we wanted to share with everybody.
Yeah, so this is our last set here. So this is from Alex and Corey, and they said they're a married couple, and this is their values for the two of them, is community. So that comes into, like, they save time so they can have time for other people, and even just the way they arrange their finances. So they mentioned like living frugally so that you have the time and the money to spend on investing in community. Then honor, respect for people as individuals and not having expectations of them. So being able to kind of recognize that each person is a unique individual and they get to make their own choices. Freedom, no debt or financial obligations, no shoulds. So that goes back to what Diane was talking about of, kind of knowing your why and choosing, like, doing things based on the choice that you make versus something I should do this. And then I thought this was good under the umbrella of freedom, an end date to commitments.
That's
so like
good.
I'm willing to commit to doing this for 6 weeks, or
I like that.
Yeah, I'll drive you to the airport these 3 times, and versus like, yeah, I'll drive you to the airport forever, always, anytime you ask me, every time in the middle of the night, whatever you want, and then it starts to own you. But you set an end date on it, and then you're able to commit and still have freedom. The next one is rest. So having time for fun, having time to just be lazy and have good times to rest, to recover. And then balance. So they said that this kind of monitors and manages the other 4 things, where you don't overdo or underdo something, and you know that there can be too much of a good thing. You're willing to make minute adjustments. And so they gave the example of, well, is your freedom dishonoring somebody else? You've got to have the balance there.
Yeah,
and so
good.
It's like balancing their other 4 core values. And I thought that was a really good perspective.
That's good. I loved. Thank you guys for your responses. And if anyone
Yeah,
else
really
hasn't, please write us. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to share that. A shout out to all you guys for doing that. Appreciate it. And I had another challenge as we end here. This will be the last thing we do. So the challenge for this week is to step into direct, or what we would call brave communication. So brave communication would be speaking up nicely where you wouldn't normally. And so it might be uncomfortable. It might push your comfort zone. You might have to step out of the boat in a sense. But so try that. Okay, some people are better at this than others. Some people, it depends on your upbringing, depends on your culture, all that kind of things. But try that. Get outside, your comfort zone and try to have a communication where if there's a boundary or there's something that you are hoping to see happen that or even the way you're feeling about something or whatever, that you would communicate with that person directly one-on-one, in a manner that's honorable, but in a manner that might be uncomfortable for you. And then I love it if you wrote us a nondescript example, so don't call anybody out. Well, they were in my way and this, blah, 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 and put their name in there and all that. But nondescript example of how you chose to opt for direct or honest communication, brave communication, versus letting an opportunity pass you by as you might have previously done. So that's your challenge. Step into brave, direct communication this week, and we'd love to hear from you. So thanks for joining in.
Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.